Alright guys, we're making a magnetic knife holder. This is a great countertop accessory for your kitchen, and it's a good way to demonstrate a couple of neat table saw techniques, including dado notches and these decorative splined miters. Stick around. So this is a great little woodworking project that anybody can make, and there's bar magnets on the inside. So you can quickly and easily just pop your knives in place, and it's surrounded by this rib cage or rafter design, you might say. Kind of encloses the knives, but it still gives it an open and airy look. Makes a nice little showpiece for your countertop. And then there's a series of round magnets along the inside of these maple ribs to store some of your smaller knives. Start by ripping some 8/4 to the right width. You'll need one piece that's 6 inches wide and another block that's 4 1/4 inches wide. Go ahead and trim an edge square, and once you have your parts made up, you'll want to get out the miter gauge. Initially I set that to 25 degrees, and I realized later that that was too steep of an angle. Basically the whole assembly wasn't stable, it was a little bit tippy. So you'll need to make both the angle cut and this bevel cut where you tip the blade at a 15-degree angle. Now it's the narrower one that receives the bevel cut. So you should be able to put these parts together and see the overall form of the knife block. Go ahead and mark that longer board so you can trim it even with the other part. Next you'll want to make a little jig, and for sizes on this jig, look for the Laguna blog at lagunatools.com. There you'll find all the specifics on what guide bushing to use and how to size this template so that your recesses will perfectly fit a commonly available bar magnet, which is a 60mm by 10mm size. Then install a good dado blade on your table saw. You'll want a set that's 3/4 inches wide to make the 1/4 inch deep dado notches on both components. Now remember to make both notches, one in each component, before resetting the rip fence. That way things will perfectly align when you go to assemble this project. Next you can mix up some quick setting 2-part epoxy. I found some that was black to match the finish of the bar magnets that I chose. You can use a cotton swab to install just a dab of that in the recess. Now ideally, once you drop the bar magnet in place, they would sit just below the surface of the walnut. And that's just so there's no metal on metal contact as you put the knives away. And then you can glue the 2 blocks of walnut together. I like to use Titebond 3 when I'm working with walnut just because it dries to a medium brown color and tends to match the finish quite well. Check the assembly for square, and while that's drying, head over to the planer and make up some thin strips of maple. These need to be 3/4 wide by a 1/2 inch deep, and of course these will be the ribs or rafters for this knife holder. Miter the ends so that the overall piece is about 6 1/2 inches long, and glue up the miter with the help of a squaring jig and some small clamps. A piece of blue painter's tape over the miter will make sure that everything stays nice and tight as the glue dries. And then I like to break out one of my favorite jigs for the table saw. This is a splining jig that rides on the high-low fence of my table saw and lets you make just a perfect single kerf that will accept a walnut spline. Now this of course is decorative, but it also adds a measure of strength to these thin miters. Now you could trim these splines freehand at the bandsaw, but I like to use my bandsaw template cutting jig that just buries the blade and lets you make a very light trimming pass without damaging the maple component. And then it's off to the drill press. We just need some shallow holes for the round magnets that will be located on the inside of these maple ribs. And we'll install those with the same 2-part epoxy we used for the bar magnets. Again, just make sure that the finished magnet sits a little bit below the surface of the maple. We're really on the home stretch now as we glue in these maple ribs. After that dries, we'll wipe on a little Danish oil to bring out the rich color of this walnut. All right guys, there it is. A nice little magnetic knife holder project. Remember to subscribe to the channel for more great free content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.